Hi, it's the Randy Karraker Show. Great to have you with us on STL Sports Central, where the crown is yours. Matthew Rocchio, Randy Karraker, and a lot to cover over the course of the weekend. Boy, there is some consternation in South Bend, Indiana, and among the Irish faithful. Those Irish, they're in fight mode. They're fighting Irish.
Yeah, Banty, they are not happy right now. In fact, no college football fans are really happy right now. Everybody has a complaint, although not always about the same thing. The Golden Domers' complaints are an entire world, all of their own. Other than everyone else in the ACC, they're the only one who's woke up today with just like a burr in their boot about an entire conference like that. So, yeah, Notre Dame's really throwing a fit about everything in every way.
Back in the day, there was a really good professional pinch hitter in Major League Baseball named Kurt Bavacqua. And I am not going to denigrate his name by calling Pete Bavacqua, the athletic director at Notre Dame, Kurt, because Kurt was way better at his job than Pete is at his.
I put this a little bit lower down the list today, but yeah, we can just talk about it right now. If you guys haven't seen it, Notre Dame, was it president? Sorry. AD, my apologies. Was on the Dan Patrick Show earlier today, and he pretty much called out the ACC for pushing the Miami argument. Why would they do that? Well, you see, Miami is a team that plays football in the ACC, and Notre Dame doesn't. And so Pete Bavacqua is very annoyed that they put out the graphic that compared these two nameless teams that were Miami and Notre Dame. He's mad that the ACC network played the replay of the Miami Notre Dame game 12 times on Thursday.
And who won that game?
And Thursday, Friday, Miami won that game to open up the season and obviously push them ahead of Notre Dame in the final college football rankings. The bottom line is, and Bavacqua's point is that they are partners with the ACC in every other sport other than football. And there's one other one I think where they also represent themselves as an independent, or they're in a different conference.
Hockey.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Big Ten hockey. Independent football, and then every other 24 varsity sports are with the ACC. But the big thing there is, again, is they aren't in the ACC when it comes to football.
Yeah.
So tough sledding there, champ. Join a conference. That's the bottom line. You guys just could have joined a conference. You could join one of the you could join the one super conference that will have you in the Big Ten, and then you'll just be in on all the fun. Or you could simply do what everybody else does and join the conference that you play every other sport in, and you could dominate them, go 10-2, and win the conference, and you wouldn't have any of these issues. That's the beautiful part about all of this. This is in your control. You're choosing to shoot yourself in the foot, or I guess nail.
Our friend Brad Thompson, former major leaguer, has a very succinct but very apt line for situations like this. And it applies to baseball players who don't make teams or get sent down.
Don't like it, play better?
Don't like it, play better.
I love that so much.
Yeah, it's not hard.
Yeah,
it's a pretty simple concept, isn't it?
Listen, every part of the graphic that the ACC put out also was accurate. They beat them head-to-head. Yep. Miami faced off against more top 25 teams, better overall schedule. It's just the fact of the matter. And so I just don't really understand what Notre Dame is complaining about.
Well, it's because they have an overwhelming feeling of sadness.
Oh, I thought you were going to say superiority.
No, that too, but they're sad today. And so that's why he's lashing out. Now, Notre Dame isn't the only interesting school. Alabama gets in with 3 losses, even though they've lost 2 of their last 3 SEC games, and they had to hang on against an Auburn team that was playing in their Super Bowl. Essentially, the Iron Bowl is their Super Bowl. I love that terminology. When you're playing for a championship, huh?
I love that terminology. I don't. It's just the whole everyone's playing for their Super Bowl now.
Well, but it's when Auburn plays Alabama.
That's true. But it's used against Mizzou fans now. If you're ever on Twitter, deep in the comments, every team that Mizzou plays, you're like, just because we're your Super Bowl, just because we're your Super Bowl.
That's not right. That's
ridiculous.
But in the Iron Bowl,
stupid.
Especially if you aren't going to the college football playoffs,
it is.
Then Auburn, Alabama is, they talk about that on the 4th of July. Yes, that's a big deal there.
Very, very, very true. Enrico Boy jumped in and said, I told you guys Friday that Bama was in, even if they lost. And he corrected, well, I think it might have been Thursday. It was Thursday, Boy. But listen, you were correct. My thing is, I just don't think you should have been. I mean, they got manhandled by Georgia in the conference championship game. They lose 3 and that they're still in. The one argument in Bama's favor is that they also probably have the best win probably in the entire season of college football, which is they beat Georgia earlier in the season, in the regular season. So I guess for you were right, boy. 100% points to you. We'll come up with a whole system to get you those points at some point. I get, but it brings us to our big question, which is one of the big questions kind of in the fallout of this week. Should conference championships matter? Should conference championships exist? If you can penalize a team in Notre Dame for not playing in a conference championship, how do you not penalize a team in Alabama for getting manhandled in one? There's no consistency, and that's why everyone's pissed off.
I think that's
or my most people.
A problem is the fact that Alabama is better off. If people want to punish them for playing in the SEC championship game, then they would have been better off having Texas A&M play in the championship game and them sitting home. You should not be punished for being one of the 2 best teams in your conference and being good enough to play in a championship game.
Even if you get handled in that game?
Yeah, because...
But should it be held against you if you don't play in a conference championship game at all?
Well, nobody moves. Notre
Dame did.
Notre Dame did.
That's the... Yes.
But no, in my opinion, I don't think that being good enough to play in your conference championship game should cause you harm. And that's what people wanted to do. Now, I can look at Alabama and say 3 losses, they shouldn't be in. But then I'll go back and say, well, they shouldn't have played in the championship game because Vandy has 2 losses and they weren't good enough to get to the championship game. A&M wasn't good enough to get to the championship game. Alabama paying the price for, and obviously they should have paid a little bit more of a price. If we're going to put that much on the first game of the season, then maybe they should have paid more of a price for losing to Florida State too. But my point is once you get to that point where if you win and you're a conference champion and you're in automatically, I don't think you should be in a position where if you lose and you're ranked before you go into that game, that you should be knocked out of a playoff spot because you were playing for your conference championship. That's my thought.
Yeah, and in fact, I have a feeling if we work back to last year, if Alabama makes the SEC championship game last year, I wonder if they still and let's say they weren't a very good team last year. So let's say they lose the SEC championship game. I have a feeling they probably still get left out for SMU last year, and that's my question, because last year they would have been the same thing, 9-3 going into the conference championship game. The difference and if they would have, or I guess they would have been 9 they were going into the conference championship
regular
game.
Season games.
Yeah. They had only 2 losses last year going into the conference championship game, so it's a slightly different situation. Because Boy here says they don't want to punish SEC or Big Ten teams for losing conference championship games. Yeah, I think that's the clear thing. I don't think this was as clearly as a weird SEC or Big Ten bias, but I guess I see the Boy's point here is they don't want to punish the SEC or Big Ten teams for losing conference championship games. It makes sense why the Big Ten team obviously didn't have any punishments for losing that game.
No.
And the Alabama one's different, and some people hate this, but like it would be different if Alabama had played that game. Like if Alabama had lost that game 28-21, and let's say the 21 didn't happen on a garbage time score, the conversation about Alabama and people expecting them to be out would be completely different. If they had played with Georgia every step of the way, people I think would have expected them to still be in the playoff after that loss.
Should we punish Georgia for losing to Alabama?
Well, that's a fair point. It'd be it's only loss though. It's only one loss. You can't punish them that much for just losing one game is the point. When you lose 3 games, you no longer have the argument of like, well, you can't punish us for this. We have this one. It's like, yeah, but you lost 3 games.
And my point is that they would have been better off if they wouldn't have had the opportunity to lose the 3rd game. They would have had a better chance and less controversy if they would have not played in the championship game and only lost 2.
Yeah, and Enrico Palazzo brings up, the thing in my head that's always there, which is Mizzou gets manhandled by Texas in 2007. It was Oklahoma, and they got left out of the BCS for a team they beat, Kansas. Kansas gets the Cotton Bowl. Mizzou gets the who they beat Arkansas in that year.
Mizzou got Orange Bowl.
Mizzou got KU got the Orange Bowl. Mizzou got the Cotton Bowl and I'm trying to think of the word, just consolation. There's the word I'm looking for. In consolation. So yeah, that's literally one of the examples, and I think the point is they were trying
that was the ultimate political play, because KU guaranteed that they'd have a certain amount of games at the Orange Bowl, a certain amount of people at the Orange Bowl. They said we'll travel better than Mizzou, and that's why they got it rather than Mizzou. And now Mizzou, one of the reasons they are going to the Gator Bowl is because their fan base travels so well. And that's why they aren't going to Music City or something like that, because the Bulls know now that the Mizzou fans are so engaged and into it that they'll travel to their bowl games.
That's fair. Yeah. I don't care about bowl games anymore. I didn't really care about bowl games that much before the college football playoff. I really very much do not. No, they're just like, for me, like
when you were scouting with the Rams, you weren't watching bowl games?
I was watching bowl games. I didn't care about the actual results.
Oh, yeah. Games. No, I don't care.
I like watching extra football every once in a while, but for me, bowl games were ruined as soon as they put the 6-game threshold in, and then everyone changed their schedule so that 6 games didn't actually mean anything. And 6 games became as long as we beat the 2 worst conference teams on our schedule and 4 teams that we should not be playing, we're in a bowl, and it became this weird thing where coaches could say, "But we're bowl eligible." It's like, I don't care, you're bowl eligible. 6 hand job seasons are good for nobody.
Well, here's the thing. The reason that they have all these teams and all these players in bowl games is due to the popularity of the NFL draft.
Yep.
And people like us as Rams fans started becoming interested in the draft in October. We know all the players, and we say, we get a chance to watch them in a bowl game.
I'm not about bowl games because it just I have a hard time quantifying just like how much the players are locked in. The All-Star games, though, that is where you will get me 100%. There is, in my opinion, there was nothing. The best part of draft season, beyond any shadow of a doubt, 1v1 drills at the Senior Bowl. That is the greatest part of any draft season. Is turn on NFL Network at like 11:30 a.m. on like that Wednesday, and you're watching 1v1 offensive and defensive line drills. Randy, I could watch that stuff for hours and not get bored.
That's what they do.
That's where guys like Ali Marpet, who I think was coming out of Hobart College, that's where he like dominated guys. And everyone's like, this guy's a nobody, and all of a sudden he's like a 2nd or 3rd round pick for the Buccaneers. The Senior Bowl is where the good fun is.
Okay, so let's touch on some of these. So you've got Oklahoma, no controversy there. Alabama has 3 losses. I think that'll be a really fun game, and Oklahoma already beat Alabama on their own home field. I won't be surprised how. I wonder what the line is. Have you checked the line on Oklahoma and Alabama? I think that ought to be a really entertaining game, just like their regular season game was.
Let's check it out on our good friends DraftKings.
Yes,
I'm looking up Alabama at Oklahoma.
1.5 favorite Alabama.
In 11 days, we're getting a 1.5 favorite for Alabama.
There you go. All right, Miami and A&M. I think this will be an interesting battle. A&M is really good. Really good. A lot of people thought that they were the best team in the country until they lost a game. And there were people when Miami was rolling that thought that they were the most complete team in the country. I would not be at all surprised to see Miami go in there and win that game. And this is one, and I'm one that believes that we tend to overestimate teams because of their quarterback, but both teams play really good defense. Both teams have really good running games. And this might come down to Carson Beck playing well or playing poorly.
Yeah, I'm all about Miami in this one. I've never been big on A&M being a top 3 team, and obviously now they've fallen off of that because of a bad loss. I don't buy it now. I'm full steam with Miami on this one too.
All right, Ole Miss and Tulane.
I think
how bad does Ole Miss win?
Not as bad as they would have. I'm going to go with Tulane.
Kiffin would have been there.
Yeah, Tulane covers 16.5.
Okay.
They lose by 2 touchdowns.
And then James Madison and Oregon.
That'll be
45 to. Does it James Madison score a touchdown?
I was going to say I'm taking the 21 points there on Oregon. They win that one by 4 touchdowns.
All right.
And so because of the 2 group of 5 aspect thing, a lot of people now are chanting for change in the college football playoff. So one of the big questions we have right now is kind of like, what are your biggest issues with the college football playoff? How do you solve that? And what does your best format look like? We have Eli Drinkwitz, who has put out a 30-team college football format that would involve a lot of play-in games. Joel Klatt was on, what was it? I believe it was 365 or On Three's, one of On Three shows, talking about another play-in game format that would get more teams involved in these big conferences. I think there's a lot of teams, but also Randy Karraker, you have put together a little 32-team college football playoff format, and I've thrown it up here on the screen for everybody. We'd get a conference championship from every conference champion, and that would
get rid of the conference championship games.
And so it just goes off the first team in the rankings. I guess teams like the Sun Belt would have to get rid of their division structure. Sorry, you guys. You're doing things correctly, but we're past the point of doing things correctly and doing things the new way.
Yeah, and they can find another way. If they want to keep divisions, they can find another way, or they could play 12 games. So my schedule, if you start the first week of August or last week of August, first week of September, you essentially give your teams 13 weeks to play 12 games. If they want to play their 12 games in a row and then play conference championship game, they can do that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Against the rules.
But so your point would be 10. So we get a conference championship from each conference, the 10 major conferences, and then we get 22 at-large teams. Like you said, you play your normal schedule, but this weekend would have been the round of 32. Then
by the way, Division 2 and Division 3 both play a 32-game playoff.
The next weekend, we get the round of 16, the quarterfinals the weekend after that. Then we get a long break for these final four teams, get a long break taking us from the 19th and 20th all the way to the semifinals on New Year's Eve and New Year's. And then you get another long break if you're one of the championship teams. You get an 11-day break or a 12-day break, and then you're playing the championship on the second Monday of the year, which is January 12th. This is going off if this year's calendar would be used. This is how this would have been formatted in Randy's 32-team college football playoff. Is that too many teams?
No.
To jump from 12 to 32?
No, because people are complaining. By the way, the championship game this year is way down the road on January 19th is when they're playing it this year. So it'd be actually a week earlier. The season would conclude a week earlier under this plan. No, 32 isn't too many because
32 is, I mean, the idea.
You reward every single conference champion.
Yeah, I get that.
And then anybody who thinks they have a chance, well, not everybody, but everybody who people rationally think has a chance to win the championship will have a shot at the playoffs.
It's
like, so do you hate the 68 in college?
No, and I guess your argument can be, it's different though, because team 60 can beat team 30 in a lot more instances than in football. Like, and that's just the reality of the situation. It's more that I kind of liken your thing is because you get rid of all of we could have had a chance. We got left out because essentially this list is going to be almost every team in the last 7 weeks of the season that was in the top 25.
Right, exactly.
Like, and so at that point, you could make an argument that at some point we were top 20. We could have made a run. You didn't, but you could have. And so you get rid of some of that, like some of the arguments people always have, which is if it's a top 12, the last two teams are going to be pissed. If it's top 16, the last two teams are going to be pissed. You get rid of that a little bit because the last two teams now, or we're talking about the mid 30s. Yep. You shouldn't. You're not in the conversation right now. No one thinks that a team right now just outside the top 25 in college football is a championship level team.
And if you're good enough, you go on the roll and you win, right? BYU wouldn't be complaining today. Texas, and I don't think they have a complaint, but Texas would have a legit opportunity. Vanderbilt, we get to see Diego Pavia in a playoff scenario. Utah at 10-2 wouldn't have a complaint today. USC would be in. Michigan would be in. Virginia would be in. You'd have Georgia Tech in there. Iowa, who a lot of people think was as good as anybody in the country, would be in there.
The Missouri Tigers, without any knowledge of who their best quarterback is, would be right in there.
Did you, by the way?
That would be.
Let's just
see. I think that'd be bad almost in some ways.
What?
Like, I don't know if I even would want to watch Mizzou play a playoff game this year.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Iowa's lost 16-13 to Iowa State. That was on the road.
You're gonna sell this. You're gonna sell this whole thing by telling me I get to watch more Iowa football.
Yeah.
Do you want to pick a different team?
Iowa lost by 5 to Indiana.
They did.
They lost
Ugly
by
game.
2 to Oregon.
Did not watch that one.
And they lost by 5 to USC. All of their losses
Also watched that
were
one.
to teams. Well, Iowa State was 16th in the country. And then the other losses you had were to number 1 in the country, the top team, Oregon, top 5, and then USC, top 15. So, and then they romped over a lot of teams, but then close losses too. You lose by 5 to USC, you lose by 2 to Oregon, and you lose by 5 to Indiana. So a team like Iowa, who I'm sure today is thinking, you know what, we can play with these teams. Well, in a 32-team playoff, they would get their opportunity to play with those teams and beat them.
I mean, if you're Mizzou, and there's some Mizzou fans out there who I'm sure you can take the Vandy, Bama, and Texas A&M games and make similar arguments for the Tigers.
Yes, you can.
Although I would argue that Vandy, I mean,
they almost have Vandy.
How much of a chance would I actually give Vandy, Bama, or A&M to win this championship? They would be.
Thing is, Vanderbilt
fairly
has a
low on my
quarterback that
list.
Vandy's got that weird quarterback situation where he can make plays to win you games in college football.
Just not enough of them. Nelio says it's only a matter of time when bowl sponsors won't be nearly as plentiful and so many minor bowl games will simply go away. I don't understand how, but according to the people who work for these bowls, and they're very biased, so maybe they're lying, they claim that bowl games are incredibly profitable as marketing opportunities for these brands. That's what they all say, that it's money well spent. So Nelio, if you think that, like me, that combining the college football playoff with, again, the fact that the 6-game line now means nothing, and then you see eventually down the road, as bowl games mean less, eventually they'll stop making money. If that's what you're saying, I could see it, but like to Boy's point, bowl games were a big deal until like 10 years ago, and yet still apparently they rake in money for the sponsors. So I don't see where that money's going to go. I don't know if college football is ever going to be devoid of bowl culture.
No, it won't. As long as there's live sports, there won't be a problem. And here's why: because an ESPN salesperson walks into Big Boy Mowers, okay, and they say, okay.
I like Big Boy Mowers. Is a good one.
Is that a good one?
I like Big Boy Mowers.
And they say, okay,
Big Boy Mowers.
We'll put Big Boy Mowers as a sponsor on baseball's home run derby. And we'll also have you have commercials in Monday Night Football. You can be a sponsor of the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest, and we'll give you a bowl.
Here you go.
ESPN owns 17 bowl games.
Jesus Christ.
Right? And so what they do is they package these sponsorships together, and that includes the naming rights for a bowl game. It winds up as content on ESPN. So ESPN is getting the money, and the name recognition is available to that company via the bowl game and all the other commercials. And they think it's a win-win. And then the CEO of the Big Boy Mowers is able to go to the game and show up at halftime and have his ego stroked.
But again, like I get like it's a cool thing, but it seems like NIL to me. Like I'm just having a trouble. I'm not saying they're wrong. This is what people are saying. I'm just having a trouble figuring out exactly how these things are so profitable for these companies. I don't get it, because to me, I guess to the casual American football fan, it's just more football, so everyone turns it on. And that and that to them is well spent advertising dollars. I guess that's the equation, but it just seems like to me, just like NIL deals, like I don't know how you're getting. If it costs you
return on investment. You're wondering about
getting $1 million, if it's cost you millions of dollars to sponsor it. I just don't get how you're getting that kind of clout. But I guess people love watching football, and if it's the middle of December and it's on, people are going to turn it on.
And some of these are tourist attractions, like the Myrtle Beach Bowl, or the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, or the Las Vegas Bowl, or the Hawaii Bowl, and the Texas Bowl, the Fenway Bowl, trying to get people to Boston. So you've got all these different entities that are trying to get people to I think the Bahamas Bowl might be over now. I don't think we're doing that one anymore. But a lot of them, the Boca Raton Bowl, are the actual cities that are using their advertising budget to enhance their visibility so that people will be able to watch it. And now, very few people go to the games, and you're right. On the Tuesday before Christmas at 2:00 in the afternoon, there aren't going to be a ton of people watching. But there are also a lot of degenerates out there that are going to be gambling on these games, and there are a lot of people that are, like we talked about earlier, interested because of the NFL draft prospects. And then let's give you the very first bowl. The bowl games, I'm going to give you the very first one that's going to be played. I think it's two small schools. It's
makes sense.
It is South Carolina State and Prairie View A&M. There you go.
Don't tell me. I'm going to go with give me the category of the sponsor, like the business category it falls into.
Cellular.
Let's go with T-Mobile.
No.
Damn it. It's too big it's probably too small of a bowl game for T-Mobile. Virgin Wireless.
No.
Damn it. What do we got?
Close. The Cricket.
Damn it.
Celebration Bowl.
I'm thinking about that one for
South Carolina State and Prairie View A&M.
Cricket's an obvious guess.
See, those people are happy to go.
Virgin Wireless is British. They're not doing football. Come on. Think. The Jeffco Hunter. Would the conferences return to the way it was with geography being considered in your system? Conferences returning to the way they were.
Yeah, no.
Oh, Jeffco, you've got quite the sense of humor. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, they're going to tell me they're going to cut down on total games played.
Yeah. No, they're these are national entities now. And the Big Ten wanted that West Coast footprint. And so they went out to LA and they went out to Seattle and they took care of that. And I don't know that the ACC really felt like they needed the West Coast footprint by plugging in Cal and Stanford, who they aren't that big of a deal in Northern California, but they're now in the ACC. And then Arizona State, that to me is a more logical fit in the Big 12 than Cal and Stanford are in the ACC, or Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA in the Big 10 for that matter.
Jeffco says he likes the idea of tiers in college football. Tier 1, 48 teams with a 16-team playoff. Listen, just wait. Don't worry. The SEC Big 10 Super Conference is coming. The bottom of Tier 1 have to play in a relegation-type game versus the Tier 2 teams.
Okay.
I like the combination of a Super Conference with promotion relegation. I love what we're thinking here, Jeffco.
Okay, here's the thing. You're ESPN.
Oh, never mind.
And you're paying $10 billion over 10 years to televise college football. And USC has a down year and gets relegated. Are you really going to be thrilled with relegation then?
It's almost like relegation and promotion gets killed when you think about economics. It's almost like you have to grandfather that system into your league in like the 1840s when TV
right.
isn't a thing yet.
Yeah, follow the money. Yeah. And if you're going to try to have a relegation system, think about the national brands too. There was a time when Mike Dubose was the coach at Alabama before Nick Saban got there that Alabama wasn't that good. And they could have been relegated. And then the problem is, once you get relegated, how do you get back to prominence?
Well, the answer in soccer, the answer to that is smart management. You actually have to like coach up. You actually have to like develop players and not spend a lot of money on them. You have to get a good coach who actually coaches the X's and O's well and doesn't need the most pricey players to win games. In other words, as soon as Mizzou falls out of Tier 1, they're screwed.
Well, and what was Eli Drinkwitz calling for when he said we need our Fortune 500 companies to buck up? Basically, what Eli was saying was, he said it out loud. He said, you need more money to buy better players. Well, if you get relegated and you aren't making as much money, then it kind of becomes a vicious circle, doesn't it?
And like you get situations in like soccer where like clubs go bankrupt because they were paying so many players and then they get relegated, and then how much money they're bringing in gets cut into like a tenth, but they still have the salary obligation. So now you're hemorrhaging money as a program. So if you're one of these programs that just promised your head coach $30 million in NIL money, and you have a bad year and get relegated down a tier, and now you're not getting you're not in the big 16-team playoff. Listen, I love the idea of finding different ways to push competition and to force teams to always be pushing and to force teams to always be reinvesting their money. It's just that if you are a soccer fan and you've had this argument before, it doesn't work because it doesn't work as a new system. We have a system here in America. Usually it involves playoffs.
And it's better.
And now that playoffs have been brought into college football, you're never getting playoffs back out of college football. This is what it is. You're not getting a promotion relegation system because it's the same thing as before, like Randy said. Money is tied into institutions, and no one wants to risk that. No one wants to deal with money shifting away from institutions. And in fact, you don't need promotion relegation now in NIL because people would argue as long as you have, as long as you can sell your program to your alumni, and assuming that the majority of large schools in America do have at least one Mark Cuban, if we're talking about the Indiana jump they made, or
Indiana would have never been able to do what they've done
without Cubes.
If they had relegation, they would have never gotten out of relegation.
They would have never gotten out of relegation.
They would have been just confined to there forever.
Or again, it would have taken a huge one person, and that's if we're using the soccer analogy. That's how some teams, move up a bunch of things. Is if you have the Welcome to Wrexham story, a bunch of rich people buy you, and then you simply outspend everybody else. Indiana would have been screwed. But the point is that every big school has boosters who can dip millions of dollars in. None of us think about Michigan State football. And in fact, we don't think that much about Michigan State basketball necessarily over the last few years because they haven't had a lot of success. They just got the largest donation in college history, a $401 million donation. You see what Illinois is doing. Every country, whether or not they're a big sports school or not, has a person,
a sugar daddy,
who can funnel money in.
Yeah.
And so there's no reason to just to blow that up. There's now a new way that the market opens up to everybody, and that's NIL, and you already saw it with Indiana. You don't need promotion relegation to push people. It's already working.
Hey, one other thing.
And that side, everything else is broken.
And Kirk Herbstreit, to his credit, mentioned this on ESPN, and Pete Bavach was upset about it, that one of the reasons for the overwhelming sense of sadness at Notre Dame today, and I feel for you, they're talking about how the committee does their weekly rankings. Well, you know what? The committee is allowed to change their mind. There are women on the committee, after all. So they're allowed to change their mind, and that happens. And you have to deal with that. You can't count on individuals staying the way they are. You know what? Some of those people might have said, they might have been watching that Stanford Notre Dame game where Notre Dame was up 49-20 in the last 3 minutes and throwing the ball deep. And somebody on that committee might have said, well, you know what, the hell with them. If they're trying to impress me, that's not impressing me at all. So I'm going to vote for somebody else. I'm going to vote for Miami over them because Miami wasn't, and granted, Miami did score a lot at the end of games, but they weren't trying to run it up like Notre Dame was in their last game against Stanford so that they could impress the committee. I don't think that impressed anybody. Granted, they were doing it with their backups, but still throwing deep with a 49-20 lead in the last 2 minutes of the game. That just doesn't sit well with some people. I think you have to play the game the right way, and you have to play with a level of professionalism because you are professionals and integrity.
And you not run up the score?
Yeah.
No. Okay. Fine. I guess I see your point. One thing that people were wondering, because you're talking about what are all the things you're taking into account here. A lot of the conversation has been about transparency. Reading on The Athletic, there was a great piece, and let me grab the.
And by the way, The Athletic doesn't seem to like the CFP because it's on ESPN.
You think that's the reason they don't like the CFP?
Yeah, they seem to write that a lot.
I mean, or maybe the writers are just really tied into the sport and understand why it's maybe not the best thing for why the current iteration isn't the best thing in the world.
Why is the money there?
Well, because everyone loves college football.
And who's providing that money?
The fans, right? No,
ESPN seems to
that too.
Be
Ralph Russo was writing in The Athletic, and he says the answer to all this is more access, more explanation, more transparency, more accountability. There's absolutely no reason the committee shouldn't share all the numbers they are using. There's no reason we shouldn't hear them in their actual deliberations. On the other side, Joel Klatt also dropped a video where he said, if they get more transparent, it's just going to be more data points for people to bitch about. Mm-hmm. So do you think transparency, either less or more, could be an answer in this? To your point,
couldn't hurt.
Breaking down how much they actually take into account, scoring a bunch of points late, or how much that they knocked Miami for those stats, or Alabama. They mentioned it. They played great against, or they struggled against Auburn early, but then they played great against Auburn in the second half in the Iron Bowl. Like, do you think more or less transparency is the answer here.
I think more transparency would be great.
Always
Put
the
a
answer.
camera
I don't
in
know
the
what
room,
Klatt's thinking.
right?
I don't know. I did not get Joel Klatt's point that it would just be more things for people to bitch about. I go, yeah, but at some point there's got to be a point of clarity. At least we now know what their thought process is instead of just conjecture or trying to get these weird interviews out of them.
And don't most people need more to bitch about?
Well, no, that I don't necessarily think that's true.
That's a societal thing right now.
Do you
ever go on social media?
No, yeah, there's a lot of it. I just don't think we need more. And I didn't get Klatt's. I didn't necessarily get Klatt's point as to why the more transparency is bad. He thinks they need to hide more, not give us. And I think part of it was maybe get rid of the weekly rankings and then just come out with one right at the end. And part of that is I think get rid of the weekly rankings as well. I think we're also reacting to the weekly rankings because they're a really easy thing to point out right now because they had Notre Dame above Miami and they switched at the last end. But the point here is that should be made is that they're not getting rid of the weekly rankings because it's a show on ESPN that gets good ratings.
Yeah.
And we all make fun of it, but we all watch it. And every college football writer writes an article about it afterwards. Drama. So it might be stupid. We might hate it all, but it's just going to keep happening. So we can find better versions of it, but usually subtraction is never part of the actual equation anymore.
Well, here's something that we all love, and that's DraftKings.
Damn right.
And here in Missouri, we can finally legally bet on sports because DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is now live in our state, and we can make every game even more exciting with same-game parlays and money lines and props and more, all from your phone, all safe, secure, and easy to use. You've got Monday Night Football tonight. You've got the Eagles taking on the Chargers, and that'll be fun. And Philadelphia favored in this game, and so maybe you could put together a little parlay within that one. Missouri fans know game day, the tailgates and the noise and the passion. Now with DraftKings Sportsbook, you can bring that same energy to every snap and every touchdown and every win. And right now, Missouri customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. No waiting, no nonsense, just pure action. Powered by America's top-rated sportsbook app. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use the code STL Sports, like you see on your screen there. STL Sports. New Missouri customers bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. That's code STL Sports. The crown is yours in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 and over. Physically present in Missouri. Eligibility and restrictions apply. One single use odds boost per customer. Market boosted to plus 100 odds. Max bet $50. Expires at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time, December 7th. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, Enrico Palazzo. Klatt went to Colorado. I'm surprised he can read.
No. He and again, he had, like I said earlier, he had a really good point about playing games, and I honestly think that's probably the future of where we're going. And the college football playoff is going to expand. Whether or not you think it needs to just go to 16 or it needs to go to 24, or if you're Randy Karraker or
32
or Eli Drinkwitz and you have a 30 or a 32 format going, it's going to change. And I think the best ways to probably change it around are give more teams in the Power Four conferences. I know people are going to hate it, but it's just the reality of the situation. I don't know how it's going to go, but more teams in the Power Four conference getting chances later in the season, I think still works. The idea that the regular season needs to be protected in college football is so far in the rearview mirror. I can't even act like it's a real point anymore. At this point, it's about garnering interest as much as possible every single week, which means that more teams being involved later on is a good thing for the eyes on the ticket, even though I think it probably lowers the overall quality of the sport. It's just the fact of the matter that we got to deal with.
All right, so you're on my side then with the 32 teams.
I think that's too many, and that's coming from a Mizzou fan, so you got to know I'm being honest about this one. Because if I really wanted Mizzou to win, I'd want as big of a playoff as possible. I think that's too many teams. I think 16 feels like a really nice sweet spot.
But then number 17 won't be happy.
Yeah, number 17 can bite me.
Okay.
At this point, I understand, because if you're a top 10 team, you feel like, and in most years, I feel like they have a chance to at least play with the top 3. Usually there is a and this is why college football worked for so many years, I think, because there usually is a pretty big difference between like the number 2 team and the number 7 team in college football.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not a cavern, it's not a canyon, but there usually is a pretty big difference between those 2 teams in college football, just historically.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but now that we've broken down the walls and where do we got to get to, I think 16 makes sense because around being a top 12 to 13 to 14 team is when it starts feeling real as a Mizzou fan.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they get a top 14 ranking, that's when I'm like, okay, now we're cooking with gas. This is something real. This team is dangerous to other teams on the schedule. If you lose a game, you're going to be a good win for somebody else's schedule. And so that's why I feel like that's where and it's arbitrary, I'll admit it. That's where my arbitrary line is on where I think where things drop off and where it goes from a legitimate contender to win a championship to we're just throwing things in there to give people a chance and storylines and narratives and Cinderella.
So
and
with this year being an example, the 4 teams that you would add would be Notre Dame, BYU, Texas, and Vandy.
Yeah, and see all of those ones I don't think are very much are not a very far cry from the back end of the top 10. Yes, they are. There is a very large difference in my opinion. Vandy versus Georgia. Georgia wins that game 87 out of 100 times, if not more than that. But the difference between Vandy and a couple of those other teams in the middle there, Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin, or even now Texas A&M, I don't think there's as much of a gap there, and so therefore I think it makes sense to have those teams in the competition.
So you'd leave 10-2 Utah out.
Mm-hmm.
You'd leave 9-3 UCLA or USC out.
Yep.
9-3 Michigan.
Yep. Okay with that.
UVA would be out of it.
You're at no point did any of those teams make me think that they could win a national championship this season. At no point this season did I think that. And if
I'm looking at it for the money.
Yeah, again, that was my point at the very end of unless you're adding these teams for money, then yeah, I can't argue against you. And that's the thing is we're always having to have these arguments in the reality scape of how do we continue to add money to the bottom line of the sport. And that's what they're thinking about. So to your point, I understand adding more games. And also to your point, we're talking about only 4 teams playing 16 games. Only 2 teams would play a 17th game. Last year you had multiple teams play 16 games. So it's really not that much more of a thing. And as teams are getting paid more players, I guess it makes sense to blur the lines more between college and pro and what you're asking the players to do.
All right, the baseball winter meetings have begun down in Orlando, Florida. A lot of discussions taking place at this point, but to this point also, no trades. My guess would be that we'll probably start to see a little bit of action tomorrow. Teams are kind of getting the lay of the land and talking to other teams. They're already pretty far down the line, I'm sure, after the general managers meetings in regards to who's going to be traded and who's not. As far as the Cardinals are concerned, it sure looks like, well, number one, Nolan Arenado is their top priority to get Nolan Arenado off the books. But in terms of a baseball move, I really think that Donovan is the player that is going to be moved if there is a move to be made for baseball reasons.
Yeah, a lot of Brendan Donovan and the Royals is being thrown out. Derek Gould mentioned the Cardinals have been interested in Noah Cameron. You can check it out on STL Sports Central, our Cardinals 365 today. Just go to the videos tab. If you're watching us right now, you're under the live tab. So just scroll over to the videos tab after we're done today. You can watch Brendan Schaefer and Joe Roderick do another whole round of Brendan Donovan to the Royals and why Noah Cameron makes a lot of sense. And my response, as it always has been, is of course Noah Cameron makes a lot of sense for the Cardinals. He also just happens to make a ton of sense for the team that currently has him.
Right, and it's I guess the question is
7 years of control.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
But also, that's a pretty fertile market with the fact that you could go if you wanted to trade for Ketel Marte, you could get him. There are other free agents. Jorge Polanco is out there.
And I guess that's my thing. If you're the Royals right now and you're having conversations about Ketel Marte, like that's somebody that you're talking about having to give up Cameron and another prospect. But like to go from a Ketel Marte conversation, we're talking about a guy who hits in the the last couple, the 150 OPS pluses,
Mm-hmm.
and a guy who was
Ketel
Marte, 3-time All-Star who gets MVP votes. If you're having that conversation for those pitchers, as soon as if the Marte discussions don't happen and you move on to the Brendan Donovan conversations, you're bringing that offer down by a precipitous amount if you're the Royals, if you're trying to keep the same, value for value kind of thing. So I feel like that would be their discussion to try to get the biggest name possible for that position. And I'm not trying to take a shot at Brendan Donovan, but tell Marte he's not.
He is not. And I would think that the Cardinals would, as they have said, they would need to be blown away. And they're probably thinking, okay, we might not even have any real substantive Brendan Donovan offers until Marte is off the books. And then it might be a team that is a little bit more desperate to add that left-handed hitting second baseman, third baseman, outfielder. I would think that would be the opportunity for the Cardinals if they were really going to strike while the iron is hot with a guy like Brendan Donovan. I think after Marte would get traded is the time that they would have to look at.
We got a comment here from Jordan Hall. Where does Cameron profile as a starter going forward? What would a trade centered around him look like? Listen, it's very clear to me that my expectations and where I'm ranking Noah Cameron, and again, this is from a 10,000-foot view. I'm not a Royals fan. I don't watch a lot of Royals baseball. I'm looking at the numbers. I'm shocked that there's a lot of Cardinals fans who seem to think that Brendan Donovan for Noah Cameron is a completely reasonable 1v1 trade that the Royals should jump at to make. Just going off his baseball savant, he's in the 99th percentile in breaking run value, which means his breaking pitches are some of the best in the entire league. Again, but his fastball and his off speed are average. He's never going to be a fastball pitcher. That's why a lot of Cardinals fans I've talked to aren't a big fan of him. But at the same time, ball comes off the bat pretty at a low velo, 82nd percentile in Major League Baseball. He doesn't get barreled up a lot, and he doesn't let up a lot of hard hits. So does he profile more to an older Cardinals mindset? Yes, but the Cardinals are also still built around defense, and so it feels like he'd be pretty successful, and I feel like the Royals have no reason to let him go at the same time because he just put out an 134 ERA plus season. That means that Noah Cameron was 34% better than the average pitcher in the Major League Baseball this year. According to some things I've read, they didn't expect him to really need to be a starter this year, yet he still came out, started 24 games for them, gave them 140 innings pitched with a 2.99 ERA. So if they weren't expecting that, and he still gave them this, that tells me at least one of the angles you could see that is they might have even higher expectations for him this year because the ceiling they expected from him is not what it is, and it's even greater than they thought. And so why would Kansas City, I know they're in a win now mentality because of Salvi Perez, but why give up a guy who isn't a free agent until 2032? I keep saying 7, I guess it would be 6 years. 2032, why give up that much control and that roll the dice when you're trying to win because Salvador Perez and the rest of your pitching staff is kind of old? It just seems like with a guy like Bobby Witt, you want to say, well, we can go in with Witt and Cameron, a bunch of other young pitchers into a new era post Perez, and now we can reload. I get they want to win now, and this is a point I made the last time we talked about this, so I apologize for repeating myself, but this is my biggest point, which is when you are a team trying to win and you have a position where you have too much depth, rarely, unless you're trying to get the best player available, rarely do you trade from the top of your depth. And considering Lugo and Waka and Reagans are all older, I would argue that Noah Cameron, after what he showed last year, is as the number 4, as fourth in the Rookie of the Year voting, he would be at the top of their depth. So why would a team trying to win trade from the top of their depth, unless it's for the absolute top of the pile in what's available? Trading for Ketel Marte makes sense. Trading for Brendan Donovan, who's a very good player, but doesn't necessarily raise the ceiling of your team that much, certainly raises the floor by a lot. I just don't see how you give up one of the biggest commodities in baseball, left-handed pitching. But then you combine that with the other factor, and it becomes the greatest commodity in modern baseball, which is controlled left-handed pitching.
But as Chaim Bloom talked about it. Handedness isn't a big deal. I would much rather have a productive pitcher. Doesn't matter what hand he is. I'd just give me a productive guy.
I know, yeah. But we talk about lefties being,
and Brendan Donovan can be a difference maker. He's a guy that makes players around him better.
Yes,
because of his ability. His abilities fundamentally. He's an outstanding Gold Glove quality defender. If you have him at second base and Bobby Witt at short, you probably have one of the 3 or 4 best keystone combos in all of baseball.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Both offensively and defensively. Yeah. He's better than what they had
one
last
and 2
year.
hole hitters too.
Yep,
top of your lineup.
Right,
beautiful combination.
And you've got a lot of other things going for you there. You've got Jack Caglione now, who needs in his second year to be better than he was. But they need to upgrade their offense, and they feel like they have depth in pitching. There's a lot of interesting things about this. However, I think one of them would be, let's say the Cardinals would make a move like that, okay? And they would go out and acquire a guy like Noah Cameron. I don't think anybody would be surprised if for opening day of the 2027 season, the Cardinals would have a rotation of Liberatore, Doyle, Quinn Matthews, Cameron, and maybe a Cooper Zerpe, all left-handed starters.
Ooh, yeah. I'm loving all that young pitching talent. Absolutely, 100%.
Oh, and let's throw Brandon Clark in there too.
Heck, just okay, fine. You know what? Trade Zerpe and Donovan for Cameron. I'm fine with that.
Zerpe's not healthy.
That's okay. They don't need him for 3 or 4 years. It's fine.
No.
They got all that other young pitching. We just need to give him an arm to make the deal happen.
Okay.
Again, if you're the Cardinals, I would love for that trade. Interesting point here from Boy. He says Martel's contract factors in as well. Okay.
4 years left for Marte?
Signed through 2030. So, 4 years left, and he's getting 6 for
5 years left.
Yeah. My apologies. And he's getting 6 for 105. So
it's a good deal. It's a good contract.
It's a very good deal for him. But it is the Royals, though. So I mean, it's not even $20 million though. So I mean, it's not like they're adding a contract that becomes like problematic. But like at the same time, though, I wonder where Boy's going with this, because if maybe Boy's point is that if they trade for Ketel Marte to get him, they're trading one of their pitchers with a little salary, and therefore they definitely don't want to trade away Noah Cameron because they're going to be adding so much money. It is an interesting point.
Arizona isn't taking on salary.
Exactly. So yeah, that's a really good point, because Ketel Marte is I need to do the math. My ability is
105 divided by 6 is 17 and a half.
17 and a half. And Brent Donovan's going to make 4 or 5. So I mean, it's an extra $12 million. Just it is a factor to Boy's point.
Yeah, but if you're saying that our window is open and you don't have
the Royals,
the Royals, yeah,
people are saying yes, they're trying to get Salvi one more run.
Okay, so if that is the case,
and they have a lot of good pitching,
and they don't have an extraordinarily highly payroll. Witt has a big contract. Salvi has a really team friendly contract. They aren't paying the first or third baseman, left, center, right. They aren't paying any other position players a lot of money. So you might as well get the best guy that's available out there. If the best second baseman available to other teams this offseason is going to be Ketel Marte, he's going to give you, if your goal is to have as many good players as possible, Ketel Marte is going to give you the best opportunity to improve your lot in the American League Central. And that includes over Brendan Donovan, who, as we've said, is a really nice player. He can help you win a lot, but Marte brings an element to the table that Brendan Donovan does not bring.
Yeah, and I just think, and that's the difference for me, is like trading away, getting that extra tier, an MVP tier player. You trade away controllable pitching for that. That's one of the few things you swing the fence for. Brendan Donovan makes you to your point. He makes them a better team, but is he worth trading away your best young pitcher with that much control? That's where I wonder if we're talking about there's the difference between those two tiers being that difference. Enrico Palazzo talking about Noah Cameron says not a high strikeout rate. I understand that baseball has changed, and I understand the Cardinals were behind the times and have to add more fireball pitching, but to look at a guy who just had the season Cameron has and has the potential that Cameron has and just goes, yeah, but he's not a high strikeout rate guy. I don't want him. I just think that's such a narrow way to view pitching. If every way you're looking at it now is if he doesn't throw 99, I don't want the Cardinals to get him. It's a fine opinion to have. I just think it's an unrealistic bar to set on every Cardinal pitcher. If he's not an elite high strikeout rate guy, don't want him at all. I think that sounds like a fad way to look at things. Like I get increasing the overall amount of speed in your
Major
lineup.
League average strikeout rate is 22.2%. His strikeout rate, hold on, let me get to 22.2. His strikeout rate was 20.5. He's essentially league
You can
average.
only strike out people with fastballs. You can't strike out people with having one of the best breaking balls in the game.
I would disagree with that.
I think
so would Clayton Kershaw.
I think there's a lot of pitchers out there
by
who
the
disagree
way-
with it. I would disagree with it as well, and that's why I think fans just being like, "Well, he's not a fireballer. I don't expect much from him. Why would the Cardinals trade Donovan for him?" There's no logical line of thought there.
His walk rate, by the way, 7.7, league average 8.4.
It's a great control pitcher.
So there's nothing wrong with him.
Boy, he's a back end of the rotation arm. Unless your own what other numbers are you diving into? Is it the relatively high FIP? Is that what you're really breaking down to me as the reason why you're not a big Noah Cameron guy? I don't know. 25-year-old with 140 innings and a 2.99 ERA seems like he's got some potential to him.
He turned 26 last
Just turned
July.
26. Okay.
Yeah, so he'll turn 27. But I would take him. I wonder, by the way, he's from St. Joseph, where training camp for the Chiefs takes place. I wonder if that plays a role for the Royals in not wanting to trade a hometown guy.
Of course I'll take him. Yes. My point is why I don't understand why the Royals would just take a 1-for-1 trade. That's been my point the entire time, is why they would say for Brendan Donovan, all our most controllable, best young pitcher for a guy with, yes, they probably signed him to an extension, so maybe you factor in, but does only have 2 more years of control. He is 29. Trading a pitcher who you have control through 2032, who just had a sub-3 24 start season for a 29-year-old just seems like it's not the best move for a baseball team.
Well,
unless you're really desperate to win now,
pitching
and you have
is
a lot
where
of
it's
pitching.
at, but that is a team that struggled in the run scoring department,
And
if
they
I'm
have
not mistaken.
So much pitching, and get back to what I was saying earlier. Why trade from the top of their depth? They have a lot of pitching, but why not trade from the Kolek and Bubic side of things? And the thing is, this gets down to, though, not also knowing what they think, and that's why reading what the Kansas City writers are writing about this guy is important, because Bubic just had an all-star season. And he's a young guy, but at the same time, is when you look at him having the all-star season this year, do you weigh that? How do you weigh that? It was 116 innings this year as an all-star pitcher, but how do you weigh that to the 300 previous innings of major league innings from him, where he was a fairly average pitcher? And you know what is it? Or is he a guy who's just like, hey, he's 27, he's hitting his prime. This is who Chris Bubic is. And so we don't need a Noah Cameron, because we have another 27, 28-year-old who is going to be controlled for another couple of years. Now, Bubic, again, he's a free agent 2027. So we're only talking about one more year of control there. So I know it's boring, and it sucks that all these conversations aren't just about the player that they are in the field. And we have to always couch these conversations as how much control do they have left? How much control do they have
but
left?
that's where we are
But
now.
that's where we are now.
If you're the Cardinals and you're building for the future and you don't plan on being good, and they don't plan on being a World Series contender for a couple more years, that's the way they're looking at it. So we just have to try to reflect, as we discuss this, what the Cardinals are looking for. You'd like for the teams that you like to be able to not have to even make trades. Just go out and sign free agents, plug in one hole, and then you're the one player away from the World Series.
By the way, and you say that, and it's funny you say that, because when me and Joe were before their Cardinals 365, we're kind of batting around why the Royals, like, do they need to swing the fence for it now and sacrifice a future window? And it's kind of interesting, because he's talking about, like, Jonathan India is kind of against it. You know, they got a couple of players who are up against it. And it's like, yeah, but at the same time, it's like, how many all-star players do they already have? And it feels like, if you're the Royals, wanting to improve for the next 3 or 4 years makes sense. needing to improve for the next year or two for Salvador Perez seems like it's a little bit of a risky jump from them to take, to be like, we got to get Salvi one more run. I understand it. I get the emotion of it, but he already won championships. They, in my opinion, if I was a Royals fan, I'd be saying, listen, I like competing this year, but this has to be a long-term conversation of who is going to be here in 4 years with Bobby Witt.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the conversation needs to be.
Well, I don't completely disagree with that. It is a franchise that has a relatively new owner. He just came aboard a couple of years ago. They were 6th in earned run average last year and 26th in runs per game. So they do need to upgrade the offense, and they have a lot of good pitching. So it'll be interesting to see what Kansas City does and what their interest level is in a guy like Donovan. They might be more inclined, if they were going to move a guy like Cameron. The Diamondbacks traded Merrill Kelly. They probably aren't going to have Zach Gallen back. The Diamondbacks are going to need starting pitching. They won't have Burns at the beginning of the season. A more logical trade might be Arizona and Kansas City working a deal where a guy like Marte would go for a guy like Cameron rather than a guy like Brendan Donovan.
Yeah, I mean, that one makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Last, we'll get Henry Wells here to close out. Diehard Cardinals fans are all in on supporting this front office and this ownership group. Diehards will continue to savagely push back against Cardinal Karens who take a piñata to this organization.
Yes, we will.
Karens. And my argument is, when something's filled with candy, hit it with a stick.
Oh, yeah. Good idea. Yep. All right. Great work as always. And hopefully during the course of the winter meetings, we'll be able to track down John Denton, maybe down in Florida.
Some combination of Claves and Denton the next 2 days. It might go Denton, it might go Claves Tuesday, Denton Wednesday. It might go Denton Tuesday, Claves Wednesday. We're figuring out, but those two wonderful broadcasters and writers will be joining us at some point on the Randy Karraker Show this week from the winter meetings in Orlando.
And tomorrow the Cardinals will find out where they draft in the 2026 draft. Again, another top 10. So hopefully we can get the number 1 pick in the draft. That'll be fun. Thanks to Wilson for Brian Cushing actually got us on the air here at STL Sports Central. And we're brought to you by DraftKings, where the crown is yours. We'll see you next time on the Randy Karraker Show.